Welcome to CDS, Custom Downstream System. My name is Jerry Lamort and I am the Service Manager at CDS. Today we will be discussing about the CBH36-8V, which stands for the CDS Belt Haul-Off 36-inch long by 8-inch wide V-FIR vector control package. This video we will talk about the maintenance operation for this spoler. To have an easier access to the sprocket, we recommend that you remove the upright when you do your maintenance on your CBH. In order to do that, you have three screws on top and 3 screws on the bottom that needs to be loosened. Once you loosen those screws, you have to lift a little bit the top plate and you'll be able to remove the upright. With the upright removed, we will have access to the sprocket, the chain, and the bearings. Removing the bearing plates is only by unscrewing these 5 bolts over here. Once that is removed, we can have easy access and removing the bearing plate. At this point, the bearing will be done on the press. Removing the bearing, you will need a press since all of our bearings are press fitted. With the help of a homemade jig, or if you purchase some bearing jigs, we will make sure that we're on the outer ring and we're going to press down with the press. And the bearing is removed. Now we're going to take a new bearing and we're going to install it. Same process. Only thing this time, I'm going to still press on the outer bearing with the use of a jig. So we're going to position it, we're going to make sure it's straight. Avoid at any cost putting any pressure on the inner bearing. By doing that, you will damage your bearing and you will need to replace it afterwards. So using, again, either a homemade jig or a jig that you purchase that is made specifically for this, we'll just press the bearing all the way through. And now the bearing is positioned. Removing the sprockets, you will need to unscrew the set screws and then they come off and you can put them back very easily. But at this state, you will always need to verify that your alignment of all your sprockets, including the sprocket of the gearbox, are proper. And also your drive sprocket to your idler sprocket is proper. How do you do that? We use some straight edges in order to make sure that we can see our alignment. So we're going to start with the drive sprocket and the idler sprocket. We're going to put the straight edge on the teeth of the sprocket and we're going to make sure that it aligns with the teeth of the idler sprocket, the first one inside. And this alignment is very good. We'll do the same thing for the bottom one, and then we're going to do for all the transmission sprockets. Again, the same thing. We're going to put a straight edge, make sure that it's touching. I have no gap, there's no wobble. And since I need a long one, I'm going to use a longer straight edge, and I'm going to make sure that all my sprockets from the top all the way to the gearbox are all properly aligned. These ones are. Even the idler on top is good. And I'm going to go and make sure that the sprocket on the bottom at the gearbox is aligned, and it is. At this point, all my sprockets are properly aligned. There's no gap in between, they're straight. I will reassemble the part of the machine and now we can install the chains. Once your bearing plate is back in position, everything is tight, we're going to put Loctite on the screw in order to prevent the screw from coming out during the vibration. The Loctite that we recommend is the blue strength or medium strength Loctite. Do not use the red one. It is not necessary for this application. Also, don't over put too much Loctite. Only put a drop on the screw. You don't need that much. And now tighten the screws. And we'll do that to both set screws to make sure that everything is nice and tight. And then the Loctite will hold everything. And we'll do the same thing for the second screw. Again, don't over put your Loctite, only one drop is enough to hold. And medium strength only, not the heavy strength or the red one. As you may see on the bottom one here, it's going to dry out and it's going to hold the screws perfectly. Now we will install the chain from your drive sprocket to your idler sprocket. On a CBH type machine with a chain driven, this chain will not have any adjustment like the transmission chain. Therefore, it's very important that when you go to cut your chain, you cut the exact amount of links necessary in order to make this work. If not, your chain will be too loose and you will not be able to install it. Also, this one will be a little bit trickier because you don't have that slack on the chain. As you may see, you will not have any slack on the chain and the chain will be perfectly inserted. So here is going to be the hard part in order to get this properly tightened. What I recommend is by having the chain sitting on the sprocket like this, we're going to take our master link and we're going to start the installation. And this is going to help us. We can rotate it a little bit. And now we're going to insert the middle links. What I'm using is basically the teeth of the sprocket as a guidance to hold my chain while I'm doing this. Now everything is fitting properly, and here's going to be the final links. Now with the use of some pliers, insert your final link this way in the plier, and we're going to insert it inside of the machine, of the chain. Now you may ask why we're not putting the master link on the other side, because it would be easier if we do it over here. The reason why is because we're very close with the other sprocket over here. So what's going to happen is that the two chain, because of the master link being a little bit longer, will hit this chain as it rotates. This is why you need to put the master link on the opposite side in order to have a clear space between the two chains. With the use of the plier now, we will put the clip of the master link. It will take a little bit of patience, especially if it's the first time that you do this, but you will be able to clip it in. Recommend by starting with the top of the clip to put it in the master link, and then with the other hand, holding it and pushing it back. You see, even for me that I do it often, I still need a bit of patience and a bit of time to have the clip inside. But once it's done, double check everything is good, everything is secured, nothing is moving, and now we're good to install the transmission chain. We will install the transmission chain now. Installing the transmission chain, we will need to go up on the idler sprocket, across to the second idler sprocket, then between the idler and the drive sprocket, and do the same thing over here. So it will go down like this. And this is how we're going to install it. We're going to start from the top over here, and we're going to get ourselves some slacks. Also, this will help to retain our chain so it doesn't go away from us. Then we will insert the chain in between the two sprockets, and here you need to be careful with your hands. You don't want your hands to be caught in the center over here. So we will go slowly to rotate, and once it did grab, we will grab the belt, and we're going to have the belt help us to push the chain inside. Again, be careful where your hands are. Do not put your hands anywhere in between the chain and this sprocket. They're going to be far away, and we're going to let the machine work for us by rotating the belt. And the belt now will help us, and the chain will go inside. Once you reached the bottom section, you do the same thing. You can use the curvature of the sprocket to help you out in order to go all the way around. So you make sure your hands are always in a safe position. The last thing you want to do is put your hands in a danger zone. Take your time, be patient. It is slippery because everything is oily. And once your hands are away of your danger, you can easily have it in. Just take your time and be patient. No need to rush. You always want to make sure that your hands are in a safe position, and see what happens with the chain. It will naturally follow the curvature. So always think of where your hands are. Make sure that your hands are safe, and use the machine to your advantage. I like to bring the chain at this position more or less. I'm going to go on the bottom section. So now we will take the chain, roll it around the gearbox. And now we're going to connect it. Your master link should not go like this, because you don't want the link to touch your other chains. So your master link needs to go from the outside. So we're going to put this one first, like this. And now we're going to put on the second one, or the top one. And we're going to just assemble the master link as you normally would. And now your chain is assembled. The last thing we need to do is only tighten the chain, because now you have too much slack. Use your proper tensioning to tension your chain. We will install the belt at this point. Some belts are easier than the other ones, depending if they're heavy or not. This one is a medium-sized belt. Always recommend to install a few ribs inside one section. Do your best to squeeze your belt, and you may have to work a little bit harder, especially on a bigger belt. And then insert it on the other side. And as you get to this point, I just push the belt in one rib at a time. I do a couple of shots one side, then I go on the other side until it's all inserted. And there we go. It is a bit of force, it is a bit of fighting, but you'll be able to do it. Then with the help of a wrench, we're going to tighten the belt by using the adjustment screws on each side of the conveyor. How much tension do we need? We're going to go until you have about ½ inch slack in the center of the belt, and we'll show you on the other side. So you want to stop tensioning when you're able to lift the center of your belt by ½ inch. Once you achieve this, your tensioning is good and you need to stop. If you over tension, what's going to happen is that all the load will go on the bearings, and then your bearings will wear out prematurely. That is why only until you have ½ inch movement on the center of the belt. When do you change the bearings? We recommend changing the bearing after 20,000 hours of operation. These bearings are self-greased or self-lubricated bearings. You don't need to grease them. Only need to change them if ever you hear any noise from it or after 20,000 hours of operation. The maintenance of the chain is very important. Once you receive your machine, the chain will be perfectly tensioned by a CDS mechanic. Although over time this chain will stretch. We recommend that every 2-3 weeks you take a look at the chain and you make sure that it's properly tensioned. One of the key components that we have to grease on this machine is actually the screw that brings the bottom conveyor up and down. We recommend that you grease this once a month. What happens if you wouldn't grease it? Well, it's going to be more harder for the operator to make the adjustment on the bottom conveyor. Also, you may risk to seize the screw. So this is why by greasing it once a month, and you don't need to do much, just putting a little bit of grease on it in order to keep it lubricated will help you to have a good working machine. We recommend changing the oil of your gearbox at least once a year. The oil level is at this square bolt over here. This is the maximum oil level that you need to put on this type of gearbox in this position. To remove the oil, you will have a screw on the bottom that you can open it up in order to get all your oil out, and then you insert your oil from this position. Do not overfill the oil, because then it will create pressure inside the gearbox. Also use always the oil that is recommended by the manufacturer of the gearbox. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like and comment this video. If you have any questions, go visit our website cdsmachines.com. The link is in the description below. Also, you can always contact one of our sales territory manager. Once again, thank you for watching.